Hey, welcome to Activate Thursday. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're so glad you're here. Lisa and I look the same from 2 weeks ago when you watched this because like I mentioned, this is not live. We typically do these live, but this one's recorded.
Or maybe we just wear the same outfits all the time.
Or maybe we wear the same. Okay, here's the thing. I went back and looked at some of the videos on YouTube because Jeff is
Do you wear all the same things?
There were like 4 in a row where I had the same shirt on. I was like, I do have other clothes.
You need to just step up your game because I look different in all of them.
Seriously need to step up my game. Welcome to Activate Thursday. We're glad you're here. Thank you for taking time to join us this evening. As always, I realize that this is recorded, but as always, put questions or comments in the comment field below. Like, we're happy to jump in. We want to answer all your questions as we're going along. And so make sure you do that. Thanks for being just attentive and engaged. We hope that the content tonight is helpful and engaging. And we've got a lot to go through. But first, let's figure out who we're talking to. Right? Should we do that?
Let's do it.
So all of you know Lisa, right? Our Vice President of R&D and the formulator of the product, True Science, TrueRenew, which is what we're talking about tonight, and the study behind it. Most of you that are watching know Dr. Zand, but you might not be as familiar. Some of you that are new are not as familiar. Dr. Zand, a practicing dermatologist. I'm not gonna get your resume correctly, but
He's going to try anyways.
I'm going to stumble because there's a couple of words bouncing around in my mind, and I'm trying to remember your bachelor's degree.
I studied biomedical engineering at Johns Hopkins University.
I knew it was bio something.
Yes,
I was going to say it incorrectly.
Super nerdy.
Okay, at Johns Hopkins,
Yeah.
which is back east, right?
The best. Yep, in Baltimore.
In Baltimore, because you grew up in Southern California.
I did.
Yeah, and then a dual MD from
Correct.
Harvard and MIT.
That's right.
All right, which already puts you at a league above all of us. So let's talk about that a little bit. We're going to jump into the study, but we want to know you a little bit.
Yeah.
So a dual MD from Harvard and MIT, how does that work? Were you like, I realize the schools are like right next to each other.
Yeah.
Generally. So is it just bouncing back and forth? Like, is it classes at one versus the other? I don't even know how this works.
So it's a really cool
guys,
program.
I have an economics degree from a school, not dual. Okay.
So the Harvard Medical School program has about 160 students.
Okay.
And MIT was approached to create a medical school. And rather than reinventing the wheel, they partnered with Harvard.
Okay.
And so it's about 35 students per year, mix of master's students, PhD students, and MDs. But it's all with a physician scientist training background.
Okay.
So we're all required to do research while we're there. Mine was in tissue engineering, which was fascinating. And then after that, you can kind of go on to do what you like. Often people will run labs. I was always very clinically interested, but I just love the science as well.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me a little bit about that, because you just mentioned it. It was the first time, like, we've known each other for a year and a half.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Year and a half. But I had not seen that term physician scientist until just recently. I saw it on one of the documents. Like unravel that for me. What does that mean?
Sure. So, standard medical training, so medical school, is clinical classes. So you learn the basic science, but you're really focused on patient care. Mm-hmm. Physician scientist training is more studying both. Like, can you look at a study and just say, oh, I'll accept that for what it says? Or can you look at the background of the study and actually assess if it was a good study that was done? Can you translate a little bit more particular, in-depth scientific information that then can potentially translate it to clinical applications?
Okay. And are all of the students at Harvard, MIT, is that the track that they're all on? Is it a
that's
physician
just
scientist?
that small program. It's called HST, Health Sciences and Technology,
Okay.
and that's the blended dual MD program versus the kids who are just at MIT getting PhDs and just at Harvard getting MDs. This is a real blending of both.
Okay.
And technically speaking, it was actually really cool. We'd have 4 or 5 classes per semester, and 4 of them would be at Harvard, 1 would be at MIT, so we'd be on the bus going back and forth. It was really cool and fun to do.
Yeah. And it's 4-year program?
Correct. Most people do it in 5+. I did it in 5
you
because
did
you
it.
usually take a year off to do research.
Okay, and then after that a residency.
Exactly,
And
yeah.
where was your residency at?
So I did a 4-year dermatology residency at UC Davis.
Okay.
I was chief resident, so I was responsible for the educational component for the residents as well.
Yes.
So you were teaching as well as
Correct.
you were doing your residency.
Yes.
And back at UC Davis. you
Yeah,
said.
so back in California.
Back in California. Amazing. And now, Bay Area,
Yeah.
and you've got your own practice there. Do you love it?
Oh,
Tell me,
Jesse,
what do you
I
love
love
about
it.
your practice?
You know, my passion for dermatology has really evolved over the years. I actually I chose derm because of the ability to do surgery. The first decade in my career was really heavily skin cancer based, head and neck surgery. And this is a thing, you know, everything in derm is very emotional because it's on the surface and people can see it. So those are the two things that drew me to it, the technical working with your hands part, but then also the emotional connection you make with patients around things that can feel very sensitive. And then when you make the progress, when you make the changes they're looking for, my gosh, the like self-esteem blossoming, the feeling good about yourself. Patients say to me things like, I finally feel like myself again. So that's really the beautiful part of it. Then in the last decade, my practice has really transitioned to more heavily cosmetic.
Okay.
So we're very holistic. Everything that we do is very natural, unlike a regular derm office where they might just heavily give you antibiotics. For our medical care, we're able to talk about more holistic options, botanical options. Then from there, transitioning that to cosmetic, what does that look like? It's really natural results. And I think that's what people are looking for these days. They want to just feel like themselves and the best version of it.
Well, the best version of themselves, right? I think that's key. That's wonderful. You talked a little bit about the technical side of it. Was the tissue engineering that you did, is that what really made you passionate about it?
It was kind of the other way around.
Okay.
I actually always had an interest in surgery, so every activity or laboratory that I chose to work in was always surgical. So I worked in a neurosurgery lab at Hopkins in undergrad. I worked in a pediatric surgery lab at Harvard. And so I chose opportunities where I'd get to do surgery, let's say like on animals when I was a resident, or a med student before I could really work on people, always ethically done, of course. And so I just really wanted to develop those skills. And then from there, of course, working on people was just really gratifying.
Yeah.
I'm taking notes because I have one of my twins wants to be a surgeon already, and she has like little diagrams of the heart on her wall and all of that. So I'm like, okay, get all those little surgical opportunities from med school on even earlier. So noted.
Absolutely. And even getting to do medical missions abroad is a really great way to kind of get your feet wet and really feel the impact that you're making.
I love that.
Yeah. And incredibly rewarding.
Oh my gosh. I mean, like you can't even really call it a vacation, right? But you're working so hard, but it's the most rewarding trips I've ever gone on have been my humanitarian medical missions.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
I
so
love
the
that.
relationships and the impact and
Like the gratitude, the thank yous, the connecting with people who need help that they can't get access to. It's really incredible.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
So that background, but what you might not understand watching this, Dr. Zand is an adventurer as well. I think the first time we connected, it took a couple of weeks because you were like in the Grand Canyon running the river, right?
This is true. So I've done 7 river trips now at this point.
Yeah.
I love being on the river. I love being in nature. And the river trips allow me to be disconnected from cell phones, from the sound of an airplane even. And it's all full immersion in nature. My brother is a psychiatrist and he likes to call it nature detox or digital detox, right? So you're really leaving all these industrial things and nature is my church. So it just revives me.
I love it. And not that we're going to jump into personal, but a couple of children at home.
Yeah, I've got 2 girls. Yeah. I'm recently engaged, so deeply in love. My girls are 8 and 6. Yeah. And honestly, life couldn't be better.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Thank you for being part of Life Vantage and everything that you're doing to help us. And for those of you that are new or watching, some of you were introduced to Dr. Zand a year ago when we launched Collagen, a year and a half ago. And that product has been been remarkable. It for all intents and purposes, it is changing the face of LifeVantage.
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
it's just remarkable what it's doing. And what we're talking about tonight, TrueRenew, is the perfect complement to collagen. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump in and we're going to talk about the study that Lisa performed on TrueRenew, kind of dig into the details. But what I'd really like to do, as Lisa approaches this from the formulator and the science standpoint, and I realize you're a scientist as well, but I'd kind of like to hear your comments and your thoughts about the product and the study from a dermatologist perspective.
Absolutely.
And how that relates to the clients. And you spoke a minute ago about the emotional impact that some of your work has on your patients, and how what we're doing with TrueRenew fits into that element.
Definitely.
And just self-esteem and confidence based on the benefits that are provided from this product. Is that fair?
Sounds
Definitely.
good.
So let's do it. Let's talk about the study. And I know 2 weeks ago we did. 2 weeks ago for the audience, about 20 minutes ago for us.
Super fresh.
We touched on the study, but let's do that. Let's talk about the study, how it was set up, kind of the protocol behind it, what you were looking to accomplish, and then what we saw at 3 and 6 weeks.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. So the way that we approached this, after we had built the product, which we built out of ingredients that were clinically tested on their own, that had clear mechanisms of action that we understood, we then combined them into one amazing product, and we created this clinical kind of in partnership with another dermatologist that I've worked with since I was saying this 2 weeks ago, 20 minutes ago, time's relative, that I've worked with since I was 19 years old and just starting in this industry. And I've developed clinicals with her every company I've been at. So she's just amazing at coming up with these clinical designs. And so we created a study that was a 6-week-long study. And the reason we chose 6 weeks is because the ingredients we chose had data at 3 weeks and 6 weeks, mostly at 6 weeks, but we knew if we did a synergistic combination of ingredients that we should be able to see better results sooner. So we built ourselves in some earlier time points, a 3-week time point to kind of check in.
Nice.
And so it was with 45 subjects of diverse ethnicities, which was incredibly important to me, of both men and women, a spread of ages as well, because I really wanted to see how this product would perform on every person. Great. And so it was on 45 individuals, 6 weeks long, and it was kind of a mix of multiple kind of pieces. There was a self-assessment portion where they would grade their skin with a certain number. I'm a 3 out of 5 or whatnot on this parameter, texture, smoothness, whatever it was, firmness. And then they would grade it again at 3 weeks and 6 weeks. The dermatologist also graded it as well at those same points. And the dermatologist, she's like a finely kind of tuned instrument because she's done this for so many years. You know how that goes. You know how to look at it. You know what to evaluate, and you know how to have that clinical eye for it. And the third thing we did was took Visia images.
Great.
So yes, so you have those standardized images. They're technical. Lighting's the same, positioning's the same. And so it kind of removes some of the error that could come with self-taken before and afters, though we often give guidelines on how to do some of those at home. And please follow those if you're taking your own before and afters. But this is a way of making it very easy to standardize them with same lighting, same positioning. And we took those at baseline 3 and 6 weeks. And so then we had all of that data after 6 weeks.
Yeah. And we've talked about in previous episodes, we've talked about different types of clinicals or different types of studies that can be done. So this would be
a human clinical.
Just a human clinical, not just, I don't know why I say it that way, but a human clinical. So individuals actually using the product. You mentioned 45.
Correct. We wanted to make sure it was large enough size to get statistical significance because we wanted to be able to say at the 3-week or 6-week time that these attributes actually had significant change.
Yeah.
And you need to have a large enough sample size to really be able to experience that and also to get that breadth of ethnicities and ages that we were looking for.
Yeah. So, and what came out of that study, the results that came out were 11 different signs of aging that were positively impacted by the use of this product. But before I kind of want to explore those 11 signs.
We can definitely do that.
And we can jump into that and maybe some of the percentages and how they improved and Zan, I'd like to get your first take on hearing those. But maybe if you could help us, like, you're meeting with your patients on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Before we jump into the study, like, maybe just some guidelines or some wisdom or some guidance that you provide to patients when they're looking at products.
Yeah.
They're looking at things to use. Do you give them any guidance on what to look for, what to avoid, anything like that?
Absolutely. So I would say the number one thing I suggest for my patients is collagen stimulators, right? So that's classically in the retinol family. The problem with retinol is that it can be very irritating to the skin.
Yeah.
So I hear numerous personal stories from patients of them saying that they've tried to use it and been unable to.
Yeah.
That's my own personal experience as well.
In my 20s, 30s, and early 40s.
Yeah. I keep trying it and I finally gave up.
Exactly. I would just try one brand. I'd be like, this time I'm really going to do it. But I would wind up getting red and peely.
And just really quickly too. And you're just like,
very instantly irritated. And I generally have had good skin. So to go from that to like, now I look worse was just a non-starter.
Completely
And so
agree.
I'd wind up putting them away. And I think that's why having a retinol alternative is so key to have that's really broadly applicable and usable by the population.
And that was so important when we were developing this, is because retinol can be so efficacious, but it can be so limited in who can use it.
Exactly.
And we really want to help as many people as we can, and we don't want to limit that category. And so by looking at a retinol alternative, we are able to broaden how many people that can see these visible benefits.
Exactly.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Retinol alternative. Why, and I think most of the audience understands this, but why as a physician do you use retinol? What do you like about it? What's the purpose behind it?
So I would say out of the entire like $10 billion skincare industry, retinol among the over-the-counter products is the most heavily studied and proven to increase collagen production, right? And collagen, we've talked about how that's kind of like the inside of a mattress, as in inside of the skin, holding everything firmly and elevated. Without it, you'll see the production of fine lines, volume loss, dullness. So what retinol does is it increases collagen production. It helps to remove that top dead layer of the skin, so you bring back some brightness. And it has these results on a continued basis. So it's not something you use for a short time. It's really something that you use for years to maintain the beauty and health of your skin.
Yeah. And the fact that maybe just your first take when when you first met with Lisa and she kind of walked through, and that we were able to develop, I'm using that loosely. Lisa was
I'll give
able
you
to-
some credit.
Yeah, was able to develop.
He was around.
It was in the same building.
Office
Lisa was
near me.
able to develop a formula that provides the same benefits as retinol without those harsh side effects. Like, what was kind of give us what you thought?
I mean, my instant thought was, wow, I didn't know there were ingredients out there that could do this besides retinol. And then my second instant thought was, and without irritation, oh my gosh, this is going to storm the market. Patients need this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about the about that. I mean, I know we talked about the ingredient itself on this last. Maybe just let's back up to it a little bit, because that ingredient itself was studied quite heavily.
Exactly,
And
which
then-
is why we chose it.
Yeah, and then we replicated some of those studies in the clinicals that you did. Help us understand a little bit about how it was studied, what came out of the study on the ingredient itself, and then maybe the clinical
what we saw.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the first thing that attracted me to the cranberry biopeptides, which is this retinol alternative, was the fact that it did have a comparison study against retinol, cosmetic retinol, where it showed quicker benefits and without all of those side effects.
Wow.
And I saw that and I was like, I've never seen this before, this head-to-head comparison where an alternative has actually outperformed retinol. And that was amazing to me. Secondly, I then went back and dug in a little deeper, and you see the gene expression studies that they've done with this cranberry biopeptide to understand mechanism of action. So they've actually shown that it is activating all of these different pathways within the skin. I have to be careful what I'm saying because it's a cosmetic,
Yeah.
but
Can I
Yes.
just let me ask a question really quick? Retinol is a form of vitamin A, right? That was more of a question than a statement.
It
I
is.
just want to make sure I'm accurate.
You are accurate.
But the cranberry biopeptide, is it acting the same way, the same mechanism of action as retinol, or is it different?
It is having very similar mechanism of action. It is not a form of vitamin A. It's actually thousands of peptides within.
Yeah, and I realize I asked that question, and we need to be like, there are certain things that topicals can do and things that adjustables can do.
Yes.
So I'm trying to be sensitive to that, and I don't want to.
They do have very similar mechanisms of action as far as how they impact your structure of your skin. Have to be a little bit careful with that, but also the skin renewal that Dr. Zand was mentioning just a minute ago to improve that radiance. So yes, a very similar mechanism of action, but instead of being a derivative of vitamin A, it's actually a very diverse group of biopeptides, thousands of different types within this cranberry. And the other piece of the cranberry that makes it so interesting is the sourcing. It is actually an upcycled ingredient from the leftover solids from the cranberry juice industry. So they take the solids, they do a really kind of purified extraction of the biopeptides, but keep that diversity so you get all of those benefits.
Yeah.
And that mechanism of action that is similar to retinol.
Which is okay, so very similar. Let's jump into the study a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. So you already set the stage. It was a 6-week-long study. We took baseline measurements at 3 weeks, and then again at 6 weeks.
Correct.
And we measured 11 different signs of aging.
Yes. And that was something that I noted on our last one because 11's an odd number. And so people are like, did some of them not work? No, we purposely picked 11 signs of aging and saw significant results at 3 and 6 weeks with both of them.
So walk us through some of them. We don't have to go through all 11, but maybe some of them and the difference you saw between baseline week 3 and then baseline week 6. And then I'd like to hear like just your thoughts, like what, like as a dermatologist, I mean, you have worked with hundreds, probably thousands of patients.
Yes.
Tried multiple protocols, and I just like to get like your impression of on some of these results and like how that stands out to you as a physician or what that means.
Yeah. So we'll give a few of the benefits and then some of the percentages. And so what the participants experienced were for firmness. At just 3 weeks, they saw a 14% improvement, and that increased to 31% after 6 weeks. Let's see, another one of my favorites, lines, like fine lines and wrinkles, 20% in 3 weeks. And then it gets all the way to 30.
A reduction of 20% in 3 weeks.
Correct.
And 32 in 6.
Correct.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing with every single one of these attributes is that significant double-digit decrease in 3 weeks and then continued significant decrease or improvement at 6 weeks.
And that was self-reported.
Self-reported,
20-30%.
correct.
So as a dermatologist, my interpretation of that is that's amazing.
Yes.
Right. And to go back to what you said, the just clinical, actually clinical is kind of as powerful as you can get.
Yeah.
Right. In vitro studies, you assume that they'll translate to human. Human studies, it's documented. It is doing it. I have to tell you that there's work that I do on patients, filler and laser, that I charge between $1,000 and $4,000 for, and I tell them you're going to get a 20 to 30% improvement in your fine lines from this.
Wow.
I was telling you these numbers were good.
So those numbers are very significant.
Yeah.
And what I love...
We don't want to put you out of business. Like, it's not...
Different strokes for different folks.
For everyone.
Yes.
But like there are some lines that are just hard to treat with
Sure.
filler and laser, particularly the ones that are the fine lines that kind of run from the cheeks to the eyes. They're actually better targeted with topicals. So
Really?
to have something like this that really works, how
Yes.
awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was some of the images that we saw from the clinical study were specifically on a lot of those lines, those marionette lines that you can see. We'll make sure some of the images are showing up on the screen so everyone can see how amazing they are. But at 3 weeks, you could already see a difference in the depth of them. But at 6 weeks, with one participant, they were almost gone. And it was just, I saw the picture and it's one of those moments where I'm like, okay, confirmation. I'd seen the numbers already, got the photos a little later. I'm like, not only are the numbers significant, they can actually see it. And that's why I like the self-participant, like self-reporting data, because they're actually being able to notice the difference.
Yes. And as a scientist, isn't that just such a gratifying feeling to be like, I really handpicked these ingredients based on an extensive research, what's currently available, what's safe, effective, and environmentally friendly. Like, I'm a huge proponent of supporting that.
Completely.
To have then pulled all those and then get to see the clinical results must just be so gratifying.
Oh, it was
too.
fantastic. I was telling Jesse and Alicia on the last one that when I got the clinical results, I was Saturday morning, I was sitting on my couch with my daughters and just let out a like scream. And they're like, wait, what's happening? And they're like, oh, it's just mom getting excited about science. And so then they wanted to hear about the science. But I was like, okay, good. Because you craft it the best way you can. You do all the research you can, but you never know how they will synergistically come together until you actually see the results, because those proof are in the results. So when I saw it, I was like, okay, now I know we've nailed it.
Awesome.
Take us through a couple more of those 11 signs.
Yeah,
and maybe
definitely.
The results
So we'll do lift is another really significant one. That was 18% at 3 weeks and 26% at 6 weeks.
when we say lift, let's talk about what that actually means.
Yeah, so kind of as Dr. Zan was mentioning, as you age, kind of collagen makes up that structure of your skin, and it's like the springs in a mattress, and as it ages, you lose that structure and it starts sagging. And so you just kind of get like a little bit of a sagging and a drooping to your skin. And so the lift is just kind of the opposite of that. It kind of gets more to how your face shape was a little bit earlier, which can bring back some of that confidence that you have in the mirror, because it can be hard to see some of those changes in the mirror. Because aging is beautiful, but we just want to help complement that natural aging that you have, so that as you see those gradual changes, they're not drastic, first of all, and you still feel like yourself. And that sagging can really make someone not feel like themselves anymore. And so kind of softening that up and giving them back a little bit back of that face shape that they had when they were younger makes all of the difference in the world.
Structure.
Yes. And so we saw a lot of that in the photos in like contouring of the jawline, where you just would see that contour just sharpen over the 6 weeks in the study in multiple participants. And that was actually one that I've done a lot of clinicals on anti-aging, and I've never gotten good pictures of that before. And so I saw those and I was like, okay, this is working. This is definitely working through that lifting mechanism of action, which is unique.
And you're like, as you hear that, what are you thinking?
So, I mean, I couldn't agree more that just getting before and afters to show a difference, even with in-depth cosmetic procedures, is hard. We're going for really subtle improvements. The fact that you were able to show that and document that with a topical, it's just outstanding.
Yeah. Give us another one.
Okay, we'll go on the radiance side. So radiance was 23% at 3 weeks, and then 38% at 6 weeks.
Wow.
23 and then 38?
Yes.
Because
I have a really small graph, so that's why I'm like, moving closer.
Well, and you talked about that at the very beginning. Like, there were 3 things that you had mentioned about retinol. You mentioned just the structure and the collagen stimulation. You talked about just the cell turnover and brightness. I can't remember the third point that you made about retinol.
I think maybe removing the dead skin on the surface and giving that brightness and the radiance.
Yeah. And this one that you're talking about right now was radiance.
Oh, correct.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And maybe from a dermatologist, like, what does that mean? Like, how, like, explain
What does that really look like?
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you in myself personally, by about age, I'm very lucky. I've had really pretty skin most of my life.
We're all questioning when you said 40 a minute ago, in your 40s, like
45.
No one watching is like, whatever, she's not in her 40s.
I left my white hair so you guys could actually believe me. But yeah, just celebrated 45 last week.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That was Costa Rica.
That was Costa Rica.
Oh,
She just got home from Costa Rica, you guys.
My two best
phenomenal.
friends and my partner and I, we just had like a life board meeting session in Costa Rica. It was amazing.
Because I knew it was your birthday because I saw it on the calendar, but I
Didn't make the connection.
I just didn't think about that. Okay, sorry.
That's amazing.
Sorry. Okay.
Sidebar.
Radiance. What does that mean?
So for me, at about age 37 is when I saw that shift.
Yeah.
when I was younger, people would say that I looked like Snow White. I had this glow to my skin. And that shifted at about 37, where my skin had still the same color, but it looked almost like it had a gray cast over it,
Okay.
is the best way to describe it.
Some people will say like a dull.
A dullness, almost like it doesn't reflect the light. Like you see a lot of young women doing makeup with contouring, and the intention of that is to catch the light, right? With my goal for my patients is to not need makeup, is to have that radiance from within and from the outside without having to artificially apply something sparkly there. But that's really the goal, because when you have that health and the radiance, you literally, the angles of your face show that reflection of light. And it was for me at about 37 that it went away, and I couldn't quite understand it. It was a subtle shift.
Okay.
It's not like anything else was suddenly drooping or sagging, but it just didn't have that same glow and radiance.
Okay.
So products like this are really necessary to restore that.
And what we're really doing, it's removing that.
Yeah, it's
that-
renewal. It's
So
that
it's renewal.
renewal.
Cellular renewal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because, and it's kind of our whole differentiation of activation. We're going to the source of what's causing this
Yes.
dullness instead of just like putting a Band-Aid solution to it. And so actually helping you have that radiance from within
Yes.
so that you don't need
And
makeup.
maybe even just to jump in here, so like there could be a product that just removes the top layer of skin and gives it a little bit of shine. This one is from the inside stimulating it. I'd rather have that way than like something abrasive or irritating on the skin to
Yes.
attempt to get there.
Because we typically, right, this is a guy speaking. I think we typically think like exfoliation
Right.
to do that, right? Exfoliate to remove the dead skin cells.
Yes.
But it's an interesting that you're saying that brightness is really coming from the inside out, as opposed to just
Just from the outside.
just
That's
from
correct.
the outside.
Yeah.
23 to 38%. Those were the numbers you used, right? 23 at week 3, 38 at week 6.
Percent increase in radiance.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And what does that, like, how does that resonate?
A 40% increase in radiance in 6 weeks? Like, that's really amazing. The amazing part to me is the without the irritation,
Yeah.
right? Like, I can dermabrade your skin, I can do a chemical peel and get you that brightness, but you're gonna have a week of looking red. To get there without the redness, that's, I think, the really remarkable part. That's really hard to achieve.
Really? Okay. Let's do one more.
Okay, let's see. We will do smoothness, and we have 25% in 3 weeks and up to 35% at 6 weeks. So once again, these high double-digit numbers.
So when we're saying smoothness, right, I fully understand fine lines and wrinkles. After the explanation of lift, I understand that and the radiance.
texture.
So when we say smoothness, what does that mean to you?
So this is another shift that happens for most people between about 35 and 40. Generally, if you don't have acne, the skin reads as smooth in our 20s. However, our follicular, the debris in our pores, our pore emptying, slows down at about 35. So our pores start to look a little wider. And because there's kind of stuff in there, your skin actually, some people might use the word congested.
Okay.
For me, same time, about 37, I remember just being like, what is this? Why is my skin bumpy if I stretch it? And I couldn't understand what that was. And it was just the stuff in the pores. So having an ingredient that will help to have the turnover, the emptying of the pores, and to increase that smoothness is really great because I mean, it just feels great, right? Having smooth skin feels really good.
Yeah.
And to have a 40% increase in that, again, without redness, is really remarkable.
Yeah. All right. Anything else about the study that you'd like to talk about?
Okay, I think we talked about all the different parameters. We've talked about the impressiveness of the double digits and the photos. I think those are the main highlights that I had. I mean, and just that validation that it gave, because it is really kind of putting that proof out there that this product does work. And it's that gold standard of doing a clinical study and actually showing that it works on people. Oh, actually, I do want to say, as we were looking at photos, my favorite thing was looking at, once again, the wide variety of ethnicities and men and women and seeing the results on all these different skin types and different ages. Different benefits, but all visible. And so one of my favorite pictures was on a male participant with darker skin, and you could just see all of the lines around his eye just slowly start to diminish over the course of the 6 weeks. And it just made such a difference to just his vibrancy in his photo. And once again, it was a male participant, a different skin tone. I love that wide variety, just showing that it is a solution for everyone, besides being just formulated for all types of skin.
Yeah. Maybe, when we're examining products or when we're looking at them and doing these studies, it's important to us to look at different ethnicities. But is that as a dermatologist, are there really differences from one ethnicity to another on their skin? And
Of course,
there are.
right? I mean, it's even if you just look at one ethnicity, there's so many differences in skin type within one skin type.
Yeah.
Then when you look at different skin types, the options become exponentially larger.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, people are thinking about if they have dry skin, do they have sensitive skin, oily skin, and those are across all different ethnicities. What I like particularly about this product is, if I understand it correctly, even people with sensitive skin can use this,
Very
right?
much so.
And that is a really sticky spot in the market, because I essentially tell people with sensitive skin that they just can't use anything with the word anti-aging in it, because it's just going to, patients use the word lizard skin, right? They come back and they're like, I was red and
I've
peeling.
heard that.
They're like, I was cracking in the corners. I cannot use retinol, right? So to have that option for sensitive skin types, I think is what really allows us to be broadly applicable to every ethnic skin type.
Yeah, I love that. Maybe help us understand. Like, maybe this isn't fair, and I typically don't ask fair questions.
He doesn't.
Yeah, not to put you on the spot. Like, your first impression as you were introduced to the product and looked at some of the things that we were doing. Like, maybe just your first kind of initial impression about it.
So the two things that jumped out to me were that it's a retinol alternative and that it has no downtime.
Yeah. What does that mean to you?
Oh, okay. So downtime means redness or irritation that's expected,
Yep.
that a patient knows that they have to push through. Could be a week, could be a month.
Yep.
But generally speaking, we're busy. People are busy and everyone's on their cameras. They don't want to have a week of being red. So in the past, am I allowed to mention other skincare lines from a few decades ago, right? Like something like Obagi, which was very popular 2 decades ago, and it worked. And everyone was just like, no, you're going to get the lizard skin. It's okay.
It's expected.
Right? It's expected.
They set the expectation.
Yeah, exactly. That's the downtime.
Yeah.
But no one liked it. I'll be honest with you. They hated
You just
it.
power.
Who's got time for that?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and especially with being on so many Zoom calls and you're just constantly in front of a camera.
And I think that's a huge shift since 2020, that people are more on Zoom. They're more aware of their face. I can't tell you how many more guys come into my practice since then, because they're on Zoom and they're like, what is this brown thing? What is this dull thing? That
They notice
never
everything.
noticed before. Yeah. One other thing I'd love to chime in with is the importance of studies. I don't know if the audience is really aware of this, but there's been a huge jump in skincare brands since 2020. Because lots of people are sitting at home going, what am I going to do now? Well, I'm looking at my skin. Why don't I make my own skincare line? And there was truly just hundreds of skincare lines that emerged.
Online through social
Exactly.
influencers. Yep.
And the influencers, God bless, they play a good role in disseminating good information some of the times, but some of the times they pose as experts. They're not doing studies. The products were not studied, and they're just touting an ingredient or it worked on me.
That's the point. I think that's the key, is so often, right, their recommendation is based on their experience.
Exactly.
That's wonderful for you.
One person.
But that's your experience.
Exactly.
That may not translate to anyone else.
Exactly.
Yes.
I have 7,000 patients, and I'm aware of what they're doing on their skin every day. And so when I hear, I've used that skincare line and it caused this, noted. Don't recommend that one. I used this one and it made this difference. Noted. Keep that on my list. Right? I think it takes someone who's, I hate to say it, but truly an expert, right? Somebody who does this day in and day out. They talk to people and get the feedback. And that's what's different than an influencer who's like, I loved it. They sent it to me for free and now I'm getting paid to tell you it's cool. Right? And then going back to the studies, right? I think these last few years, there's been a drop in the number of studies because there's a face that's saying it's cool versus the study or a doctor saying it works.
Yes.
So I'm just so proud of you for doing the clinical study and in particular the Visia study, because you can't fudge those. Like a computer analyzes those.
Exactly.
You know, and so those are real. And I just want to say for the audience, pay attention to that stuff. This matters.
Yes.
I love it.
And I agree, there has been that shift, and people do just listen to what an influencer is saying, and it is a personal experience, and personal experiences do matter, but it can't be the only thing.
Yeah.
Correct.
It needs to be backed up, because we always do tell our consultants and everyone using our products, use our products and get your own story. But we have all of this to back you up. We have the ingredient data, we have the clinical data, we have we have all of these pieces that back you up and your personal experience. So it gives you the whole package.
And the fallout of all those companies that were created in 2020 is there's a lot of companies closing down now. Companies that boomed and are failing now because they didn't have that science to back it.
Yes.
And that's not even to speak of like the damage that some of them have done. I'm sure you've got patients that have come in with damage to their skin because of a product that was probably not studied correctly or didn't have the studies behind it.
Absolutely. I can think of a beautiful young Latina girl that came in using a new product. I'd never seen anything like this before. Her face was covered in something called milia. You might know milia as what looks like a whitehead. Not a big deal if you have one or two. She had over 1,000 of them caused by using a cream for a month.
The poor thing.
And, you know, we had to really actually put on quite serious medications to undo this process. And to me, that really underscored how scary it is that one random product used incorrectly, formulated poorly, can have such a detrimental effect, you know, unexpectedly on the skin.
Yeah. And what's great about LifeVantage and our customers and specifically our consultants is that they demand the science, right?
Yes.
They love it. They demand it. And we have to hold ourselves to that standard. And so we approach, every product we approach with the same type of rigorous studies and dedication to ensuring the safety, the efficacy.
All the pieces of it.
But it's been studied and proven, right?
Exactly. That's part of kind of our product attributes that we always have. And that's part of the reason I always talk about why I came over to LifeVantage is I can't talk authentically about something that I don't believe in, that I don't believe is efficacious and safe and made correctly and developed correctly and proven. Yeah. And so if I'm going to put my name behind anything, it has to have all of these. And so LifeVantage checked all those boxes, which is why I changed.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Zand, thank you. Lisa, thank you. We wanted to keep this to 30 minutes. We're at about 40. But
it happens with us.
It does happen with us.
We say 30 minutes every single time, and then we talk.
I'll be, and I apologize, guys, that we're going to end this. I could sit here and talk to you guys for hours.
I love talking to you guys.
Love listening to you explain things, and I do know how. You have such an incredible way of taking what is very complex and just making it very easy to understand. So thank you for that.
My absolute pleasure. So fun.
Thank you for taking time, and thank you for being here. I've already mentioned, thank you for being in San Antonio with us. This is so much fun.
This is exhilarating.
This is so much fun. Thanks for your wisdom today and sharing everything. Lisa, thanks for the incredible product. Thank you for your wisdom. For those of you that are watching or listening, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Again, if you've got questions or comments, leave them in the chat. Lisa and I will jump back in and we'll make sure that all of those are responded to. If you have questions for Dr. Zand, I am not giving her contact information, but I will relay anything that you would like to send to her, and we'll make sure that she gets it. So thank you for joining us. If this was beneficial, which I know that it was, please share this with someone else that can benefit from this information. It will be a blessing and a help to them as well. So thanks for joining us tonight, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Bye.